afternoon, Suave afternoon. This is Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, and creator. Hope you guys having a suavelous day.
Yeah, and with that, let's commence the pay.
Okay, I'm so suavelous, you so suavelous.
Together we can fix the trauma that's befallen us.
Divine social interactions remains marvelous.
Mind-blowing, suavelicious talk, higher consciousness. But think, let not your hearts be troubled, Dr. Brother Suave.
Divine light give you dull.
Greetings. This is Dr. Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, creator, and your social divine therapist. And guess what? You're a host of Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. Suave evening, everybody. Listen, y'all know this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I hope you guys are attending your mental health. Listen, man, we can worry about the muscles, the health, but man, this is it. These muscles sometimes they get weaker, they get softer. But you read these books and try to keep yourself on point and try to stay on point so you can be mindful, sharp, and alert. And also being able to control any things that may be irrational, become emotional. And we want to be able to be on point because let me tell you something, mental health is something that's serious. Specifically, sometimes in our Black community, sometimes we just take it for granted. It's taboo. We don't want to talk about it. But one thing we got to realize a lot of this mental health is confidential. You don't have to worry about nobody knowing your business. Listen, it's about you. I always say you got one heart, one life, one soul. Take care of at all costs. So taking care of your mental health is extremely important. And I suggest that everyone does that, because this is like self-care, loving yourself, some you. And these are the things you need to do. So under no circumstances should you ever take mental health for granted. And see, one thing about mental health, it can come in several ways, but generally it's organic or it's environmental, or it can even be conditions and learned behavior. So you want to be mindful of that and understand there are correlations between substance abuse and mental health. And there's also a direct correlation between mental health and substance abuse. And then what happens is sometimes you can go through situations that have you having these episodes dealing with anger and emotions. And sometimes, man, you can destroy relationships, you can destroy houses, products, or whatever, property. And so you want to be mindful. And if you ever think you're having some issues, don't disregard it. Go ahead and seek treatment. Go to a therapist. If you have a job, use your benefits. And listen, there are some services out there that you can get for free. Just Google it and look for it. But you want to make sure you take care of your health, your mental health, because again, these things are important. People put a lot of emphasis on the physical health. But let me tell you, man, your mental health is equally important. And so we want to be talking about this. So we're going to be discussing mental health, but with our primary topic today is dealing with anger management. We have a wonderful and talented guest tonight. He's the founder, when I say the founder of Calm 247 LLC. This is Mr. Delvin Rogers Sr. He's currently an educator. He's teaching K-5 basic skills in communication. He's has a service initiative called Calm 247. The acronym stands for Control Anger, Limit Madness. It says this initiative caters to the youth and anger management. His passion and purpose is to make sure the youth are able to get the best possible information about having self-control, emotional intelligence, coping skills, and conflict resolution. And that's something that we need in today. So without further ado, let's welcome the wonderful and talented Mr. Delvin Rogers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hey, man. Hey, thank you, man. I'm just so excited, man. So excited to be able to. I see you got your calm shirt on. I got my.
Oh yeah, you gotta,
Hey, it's about branding, so we got to learn to keep that thing calm. Because I'm gonna tell
absolutely.
Emotional intelligence. I have a book actually coming out this September called The 10 Commandments of Emotions, and it's dealing with anger management. It's dealing with emotions. It's dealing with because one thing about when you're not managing these emotions, they will show up and show out.
Yeah.
As I said in one of my other books, one of the most painful experiences of life is the pain regret. So you guys out there listening, listen. You don't want to sit there and take anger management for granted for yourself and as well for your children. So if you have any children out there, you guys, it is important that you tell your friends so you can tune in for tonight's broadcast. So, Mr. Rogers, tell the listening audience just a little bit about yourself, man. It's a beautiful day, so just share a little bit.
So a little bit about myself. As you mentioned, I'm a full-time educator. I teach K through 5 basic skills and communications. I work at Franklin Academy in Sunrise, Florida. I've been there for about 4 years. And a little bit about Calm 247, which is, again, control, anger, limit madness.
Okay.
What made me get into that, just working at different schools and always having jobs working with kids, you would always see different emotions, different attitudes, anger issues and things like that, on top of things that are going on in the communities as far as, youth killing youth, shootings, this, that, and other. But, I would always wonder, why are they so angry, about different issues? Why are they so angry? So when I was able to, do a certification, after that, I was like, okay, well, what can I do now? So, I came up with a name, and the name is so fitting for what the situation is. We're talking about anger, but at the end of the day, you want to try and be calm, or as calm as possible. So, I just took that and ran with it. And, being that I've already, been working in schools, I just started channeling, different people who I've received cards over the years from, and just, hit the ground running, and, started going to different schools, different organizations, just speaking to groups, and talking to the young men as well as the young ladies. I didn't exclude them, but more so the young men about, just your anger, and self-control and emotional intelligence. And these are things that you will find out that our young men don't know. They don't know what it means to have self-control or coping skills or conflict resolution, and these things are important. But at the same time, when I'm talking to groups, I'm not judging that they don't know, because you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely.
If you've never been told these things, then you don't know. You're going to go about doing it the way you think is right. So I'm just trying to speak to as many groups, speak to as many young men and women as possible, to try and get them this information, ahead of them transitioning into adulthood. Because once you reach that adulthood and, you don't have that coping skill or conflict resolution, it's a slippery slope at that point, because they really wouldn't want to listen to what you have to say, because they're stuck in their ways at that point.
Absolutely. And it's funny, and anybody know me, of course, a family marriage and family therapist, trauma coach, and been doing this for a while. But the thing is, I am an advocate for males, because a lot of times people don't realize we don't have all those support systems. And a lot of times, unfortunately, the only system that they may have for is the penal system that they pretty much support. So I'm happy that you put the emphasis on, but you don't exclude, because again, our young girls need the same attention, but it's just the fact that you're supporting us. And that's the thing I'm appreciative, because again, at the end of the day, we look at those numbers. There's so many young boys who haven't had coaching, and haven't had the therapy, haven't had the treatment to help them prepare themselves to the next level. And as you see, more younger and younger kids are getting lifetime convictions. And so it's important. And so as you say that, thank God for you and Calm 247. But again, I don't look at children as being the ones who are the primary people to be so responsible for this. Thank God for organizations like you and all the many coaches and therapists out there in the world. But the thing is, I'm looking at the caretakers, and we know the primary caretakers are the parents. So the question I have for you is, how can parents help their children with anger management issues?
I think and that's a great question. I think for parents, they have to approach it in a positive way. That's number one. You got to approach it in a positive way. So if the parent knows that, okay, I have slight anger issues myself, what you have to do is take a step back before you could even want to try and assist, your child, because you may have some hidden or underlying issues that you need to straighten up. So you have to approach it in a positive way, but you at the same time, being that you recognize you have some issues and you're trying to help your child or children, you guys can help each other. So
Absolutely.
I would say, you have to show a lot of empathy, because at that point you could recognize some things that you're dealing with. You recognize some things that they're dealing with, but you guys can bring it to the table, sit down, discuss it, because you have to show that empathy. You have to show that compassion. Of course, you want to show love, and that's also number one,
Yeah.
and you want to show that understanding. You can't be that parent who, if the child does decide to open up to you, you can't snap, because this is their time to discuss some things that they're feeling and going through, and they want to know that you're totally understanding of what they're going through, and
Absolutely.
once they have a total understanding of that, then that's when that wall will start to break down, and then they'll start showing and telling you some more stuff. And that's what you want at the end of the day, that your child can
Absolutely.
share some things with you and
Yeah.
not be so angry at how you do or how you show your love towards them. It's only arguing, or you did this or you did that. That
Mhm.
child will never open up at
Yes,
all.
never, never. And we know empathy is understanding. And the thing is, when parents go on attack mode, they forget that the children shut down. And it's almost like understanding the circle of causality. The more they yell, the more the child shuts down. The more the child shuts
Absolutely.
down, the more they yell. And someone has to break that circle of causality. Someone, and that should be the parent. The parent has to stop the yelling and make that child feel comfortable to open up and share what their issues. But the thing is, the parents sometimes don't have that thing. You know how we look at generational curses, patterns of
Right.
repetitions, and insanity cycles. So sometimes you have parents who never got it from their parents,
Right.
so they just repeated the behaviors. And it
Right.
reminds me of years ago, I had a relative was asking me to address their child's anger management issues. Always saying the kid was always explosive, the kid was doing this, and I'm processing this because I'm about 20 years, 15 to 20 years their senior, and I'm like, it reminds me of parents who want to send their children to Sunday school but don't want to go themselves.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there like I say, well, I get it, but I'm gonna make a referral. But what I want to ask you is, do you think you have any anger? Oh no, F no. I'm like, okay. I
Yeah.
said, you do know I watched you grow up. You do know I've seen these behaviors that's consistent. And like I say,
Mhm.
when we're talking mental health, this is a learned behavior.
Yeah.
You want to put him, her, and have them have treatment, but you don't want to address your issues. And these are learned behaviors.
Absolutely.
And then sometimes parents are so blind to their behaviors, they can only look at their children's behavior and not even recognizing that
Right.
they got it honestly. And so
Yep.
I wonder, and this is why sometimes when we would do therapy, I would always have the parents involved. Sometimes they just want to send them and drop them off, and it's so important that they get involved.
Right. Right.
And so we can hear this child, and so sometimes the child feels protected because the therapist is there, able to talk to them and freely open up to some of the things that they really could not say to their parents.
Right.
How they real feel and how they feel when they're being bombarded with aggressive talk towards them, and so and why they shut down. And that
Right.
has to be frustrating for a parent, but the parent has to be mindful. It's very frustrating for the child. And so my question is to you is why do you think our youth are so angry?
I think our youth are so angry just because of everything that they're facing all at one particular time. First of all, we got to recognize that they're just children.
Yes.
Whether they're 11 or 15, they're still a child. So
Yes.
they're trying to maneuver through life and figure things out, in terms of being a child.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're faced with adult-like situations,
Yeah.
whether mom is never home or dad is not in the picture, or the child has to take care of, siblings and things like that, but they, are not being granted the opportunity to just be a child. So that's, that can be an angry situation. Mom yells all the time for the smallest things that I do. She never takes time to listen. Um, I want to play sports, or I want to be involved in this or that, and I'm just told no, and it's so much on their shoulders, and then I may be being bullied at school, or the teacher doesn't like me, or nobody wants to listen, and that plays a major role with anger and youth, when no one takes the time to listen, because a lot of times they just want to vent just like an adult would. We want to talk about some things, and we may have that confidant, wife, best friend, what have you, and we can just sit and talk and
Yeah.
get it out. But a lot of times they don't have that, because the parent may just come home and it's straight to the room, but I want to discuss my day. Do you ever sit down and ask, okay, well, how was your day? What did you do? Things like that. And the smallest things matter.
Yeah.
The
It
smallest things
really
really
does.
matter, and it lifts weight off a youth's shoulder, because you took time to just listen to what they're going through. And when
Yeah.
they don't have that, then they figure out a way to solve that and settle that, especially if it's, let's say, bullying in school, yeah, that youth is angry, to the point where I'm tired of dealing with this, but
Mhm.
I don't have anybody to talk to about this, so I have to act on it, but it's just a lot that youth deal with, and they just need people, good people, that have their best interests, to just listen to what they have to say, and non-judgment in a
Mhm.
non-judgment way,
Yeah.
and just sit back. Anytime I do groups with young men, that's the first thing I start with. You guys can engage did this, or why are you angry and you need to do it? No, sir. I'm sitting back. I want to hear what you have to say. And I want to be a sponge and absorb everything that you're saying, so we can discuss, some things later on. But I want you to feel comfortable by just talking, because I know a lot of times you guys are not able to, because the world is just looking at you as an angry black boy. He's going to
Mhm.
do this. She's going to do that. I knew, you proved to me that you were who you were, who I
Yeah.
thought you were, and they get enough of that, so
Yes.
here I am to, somebody that they can identify with, although I'm much older than, the group, but I tell them, listen, I was once your age, and sure, I got angry a lot. I get angry now as an adult, but it's ways of going about it. But you tell me your story.
Absolutely. You mentioned something earlier, and this is dealing with parents, and this is why a lot of times, how we say citizens are citizens and law enforcement are law enforcement. So we hire law enforcement a higher standard. So they aren't
Right.
supposed to be as aggressive. They're supposed to be more empathetic, more understanding, and having a listening ear. So that being said, I look at parents, and you mentioned about sometimes as parents, don't give these children opportunity to be children. And so they end up spending time taking care of their siblings, and they're being parentified at an early age. And they're like, I want to go play. I want to play with my toys. And I'm spending time watching, supervising their siblings. And then when they try to tell them, listen, I want to play sometimes. I had to spend all day doing homework. I can't because I'm tired. I'm sleepy. I went to bed late, and then the parents is not even listening at
Right.
all. And sometimes a listening ear and apology can sometimes reduce that level of anxiety, that levels of stress when the child knows that the parent has so many obligations, but at least sometimes they can just take their time and listen to them and say, I'm sorry. So the kids that end up actually getting empathy and understanding for their parents. But if their parents don't take that little bit of time to spend with that child and explain the circumstances, and it's just like, how you can even find ways to manipulate, because manipulation could be good and bad. But if you want survival and you're a single parent, You have to sit there and say, listen, we're a team. We have to work
Hmm.
together. And I apologize. And then find some way, as you mentioned, get some positive reinforcement, make that sacrifice and get a box of donuts to show some level of appreciation, and those are the things that sometimes can reduce that anger, because the kids are feeling taken for granted, not listening, and they can go ahead and have those outbursts, those and take it out, which is displaced aggression, and then and we don't even know about the potential diagnosis they have in terms of intermittent explosive disorder, and
Right.
that's a whole nother level, and but
Right.
remember I say things develop,
Right.
and so this is a thing, and then the next thing you know, they child have a mental health disorder, and they're like, huh, what, my child
Exactly.
developed
Exactly.
into that.
Exactly. And the thing is, just to piggyback off you said, a lot of times, you can sit down and have that conversation at the dinner table, and find a solution in terms of working as a team. So,
Mhm.
yeah, if the mom works late hours or whatever, sit down with the son. Listen, son, I'd like for us to work as a team. Despite me having to work late hours, I appreciate
Yes, positive
you.
reinforcement.
I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. This is not going to be a forever thing. This is temporary, but I appreciate you. And the thing is, when you give those praise moments,
Yes,
and those rewards, that kind of lightens up that aggression and that anxiety that child has, because okay, now mom, she recognizes that I'm doing a great job. She's telling me, I'm feeling a lot better about myself. I don't have that low self-esteem like I had before. She's recognizing that I'm doing a great job, and that makes the child feel good.
yes,
And then they'll go that extra mile for you to, hey
yes,
mom, what do you need me to do? Did I
yes,
do a great job today? I cleaned, you know, Elijah's shoes or whatever. I ironed everybody's clothes. Did I do a good job?
yes,
And when you tell them that, that changes the dynamic, that changes the whole aspect of everything.
yes. Yes, and
So
and that being said, and this just segue into a question, because it could be good or bad, but to address this, because you pretty much answered it, but I want to ask it anyway. Can anger affect relationships? Because I see what you said in terms of how positive reinforcement can offset that
right.
anger, but how does you see anger affecting relationships?
Man, it can do some damage, because you have family, you have friends, you have neighbors, things like that, and if you're dealing with quite a bit, and you're just that angry person often, you leave people not wanting to be around, or just totally isolating themselves away from you altogether, because they don't really know exactly who they're going to get, today, or
Yeah,
tomorrow, or what have you. And in the household, it's the same thing. I don't know if Delvin is going to be, that nice guy that he was last week, and that just, you lose people that way,
hmm,
and it's unfortunate, but if you never take the time to process and try and figure out, okay, well, why am I angry? Let me
hmm,
talk to somebody, because at some point you're going to see people starting to slowly fade away. Okay,
yes,
I'm losing friends, I'm losing family members. Nobody's coming over anymore like they used to, so at that point it should click, man, maybe it's me. Because at some, in the beginning, you're gonna think, okay, it's all about you. You're right, you know, but you're so angry to the point where just nobody wants to be around you, and you'll recognize it.
yeah,
You'll see it. You may not want to see it, or just you think people are taking a hiatus, but man, listen, they've walked away. But you just have to figure out, okay, I have an issue. Let me talk to
yeah,
somebody, and it's okay. It's okay to talk to somebody. You leave that anger harbored, with resentment. You're gonna take it out on the wrong person, because you've stored so much to the point where you may hurt somebody. So
absolutely,
recognize that there's an issue, and get some help, talk to somebody, and once you feel okay, I've practiced enough, I've done a great deal to where I feel I can, call some friends back and apologize and say, hey man, listen, it was me. I was dealing with XYZ, but now I'm getting the help I need. And, I hope you guys can accept my apology and, we get back to being how we were.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, sometimes if these things don't get managed, I mean, we're talking about destruction of property, hurting people. We're talking about these outbursts that leads to physical assaults, even assaults on animals. And our authorities, man, they're serious about animals.
Yeah, they don't play about that.
They don't play. I mean, we may sit there and say, wait, we just say they assaulted a human being, and you're going to compare to animals? Because
Right.
animals are like, when they look at children, parents or adults, they have an obligation to protect children, even against a spouse. So they
Right.
look at animals have to be protected
Right.
because they can't protect themselves. And so when people don't address those issues, it can lead to a lot of things, restitution, just because you're a child, they're gonna hold that parent responsible, and you're gonna have to pay back that property damage and all that.
Absolutely.
And so the question is, so that being said, how should children control their outbursts?
I think for, and that's another great question. I think for children, to be able to control their outbursts, I mean, you have to have that self-control. You have to have that, because if you never have that self-control, you're going to self-destruct at some point, but it just goes back to what I was saying in terms of, if you recognize when you're angry about whatever, but it's best to process what's going on around you, and what you're angry about. And it's okay if you need to step aside, or step away, find you a safe space, to get yourself together. And, whether you listen to music, whether you, write poetry, whether you, write raps, whatever the case is, but find you a safe space to where you can get yourself together, where it's all about you at that point, because that's your area. And I think for parents, and not going left on what you're asking me, but I think for parents, recognizing that your child does have, anger issues or outbursts from time to time, and they go to their room or go to a spot that's, they're by themselves, let it be, because that's a spot where they can get themselves together, manage their anger. And you see a different person when they come back to you, but you can't run behind and, light more fire to that flame, because you're not going to get any type of results that you're looking for. So if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes that they're in that particular space, let them be, let them gather themselves. And oftentimes, they'll come back to you. Hey, mom, dad, I apologize for the outburst. This is the reason for that, and you have to be understanding at that point. And again, you meet at that table and you come up with a solution. Okay, well, you were mad about this. Okay, well, son, what we can do is, and then, come up with a solution. But it's not about, running behind and arguing, and they're already upset. So I just think for kids and their outbursts, just, you got to figure out and have that emotional intelligence and understand, okay, well, I'm angry. So what am I angry about?
Yes.
And what are you going to do next? What is your next step?
Yes. And
So,
this is such a learning. This is why sometimes when we have things and we don't understand, this is why psychoeducation is so important. I remember people would say, oh, my kids, they get a timeout. That's a purpose. That's a time to focus, get centered and calm down.
yeah.
But sometimes we going after them, agitating. It's just like the police. You're supposed to be de-escalating.
Right.
You escalate by, like I said, following behind them, saying you this and this and that. You don't have to say anything. You give them instructions. We all know nature. They're going to calm down.
Yeah.
They're going to calm down. They're going to calm down. You see their body language, just give them another time out. Say, just relax. I need you to calm down. And I guarantee they'll think about what he did. And a lot of times kids will actually apologize.
Yes.
And this is why it's so important as parents, we learn to apologize to our children so we can lead by example and help them understand these things. And so I wanted to go into the next question. However, it's about time to go ahead and go to our station identification, and we'll be right back with Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, with our very special guest, Mr. Delvin Rogers.
We're shining bright, and we're shining the light on us like no other. Neighborhood Planet, our neighborhood, our world.
And we're back with Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, with a very special guest, Mr. Delvin Rogers Sr. We've been talking about anger management, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting, especially dealing with our youth. It's, oh my God, this is something that I think society generally don't realize. They recognize epidemics that dealing with health issues, but I don't think they really realized epidemics dealing with mental health, and it's something that really needs to be addressed. You know, because I mean, we don't hear about like these shootings at workplaces. We hear about shootings in schools. So
Right.
obviously, these mental health issues haven't been addressed, and so I have my opinions about anger management and mental health. But I wanted to ask you, Delvin, do you think can anger management, anger affects the youth's mental health?
I do, and here's why. So I brought it to a point of when I worked with a particular group, and this was maybe some months ago. So I told a young man, imagine, waking up every day, going to school, but trying to hold your breath for about 10 to 15 seconds, every day, having to do that. But as I was saying that, I had them to do that right on the spot, and some couldn't do it past, 5 seconds. So
Okay.
my point to them was, just imagine you having to do that every day and how that would affect your mental, and your anxiety, because you knew that's something that you would have to do, but that's something you didn't want to do, but how effective that would be, with your mental, because you're trying to hold your breath, for as long as possible while you maneuver and walk around and things like that. So I just think when, at a point when you're having to do things that, you don't want to do, and it's making you angry and things like that, and you're not talking to anybody, you're harboring it, and things are going on at home, and, your grades are bad, and, you're subject to not possibly graduating, all of that stuff being balled up in one, on top of possibly being a caretaker to your sibling. At
Yeah.
some point, at some point, it's gonna affect your mental because you're not letting go of anything. You're holding on. So it's like you're trying to sleep it off. You're trying to maybe jog it off. But the thing is, it still lies right there. So if you haven't discussed it with anyone, it's gonna affect your mental at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I have some more questions, but I wanted to ask you something because I was looking on social media and I saw you had a program. You was doing some schools. I think it was Mentor Boys or Boys to Men or something like that.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to get sidetracked, but I just wanted to talk about that because I wanted you to share with us, some of the things that you do, and I wanted to discuss that because since you was here, I did see you on social media. So tell
Right.
us a little about that.
So I was invited by Coach Dunn, which
What's
is
done?
he's the owner of Men to Boys, and that's a men's group, of course, where he deals with youth that are in DJJ system. So
Okay.
it's court mandated that they attend that program for various reasons, whatever charges they have. So he invited me out. It was about 10 young men, various things that they have pending within the juvenile system. And I spoke with them. I got right into it. It was no sugarcoating, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it was no finger pointing because I was, that was my first time meeting them. But at the same time, I wanted to come from a real place,
Yeah.
and talk about anger and how effective it could be, but how healthy of an emotion it is, but it
Yes.
only becomes unhealthy when you have no self-control. You don't have any coping skills. You don't know how to solve a conflict, this, that, and the third. So I talked to them in depth about that, but I also brought up stories of things that are going on around them that they could easily be drawn to. Mentioned a situation about the young man who is 14 years old, who shot a 17-year-old who was a prominent Deerfield Beach High School quarterback.
Oh wow.
Um, and he was, starter for Deerfield Beach High School football team, and he was shot and killed by the 14-year-old. And I brought it up because you have to be angry to come to a park, first of all, with a firearm and to shoot someone. I don't know what the specifics were in terms of why he did it, but at the same time, again, that's anger, that's rage for you to even commit such an act.
Mhm.
And I also went into depth in terms of what the 14-year-old final situation was, and he was tried as an adult.
Yeah.
And I just mentioned, there's no way the 14-year-old understood the verbiage in terms of what the judge was saying in court. I know he didn't, but just to hear that you're going to be tried as an adult,
Yeah.
and you're 14. So just imagine that rage and anger that you had, and you committed that act. But here are programs and service initiatives that I have to where I want to talk about these things so you could know about self-control, know about coping skills, know how to maneuver if somebody is bothering you or you need to talk to somebody. This is why youth and anger management is important, because if these kids don't know these key tools, then they'll keep doing what they think is right, or they'll handle the situation in a manner to where they think it's right, and here comes the consequences after the fact. Now,
Yeah.
I can only imagine him, having to be told you being tried as an adult. You're 14 now. You're going to Broward County main jail as a 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talked about mental health, that's going to come down on him like a ton of bricks, because you're in there with lifers, 40-year, guys, 30-year people that are bigger than you, and your mental is not in a place to where you can handle those type of situations.
Yeah.
And I just, anytime I talk to groups, I keep it all the way 100.
It's funny. I mean, you can't see what I'm looking at, but it's an article in 1981 with my pops, and it says programs seek solution for troubled youth, and they was trying to address those issues about youth because they try kids as adults. But the thing is, as we mentioned earlier, it's our parents' responsibility as caretakers to look at those issues and don't disregard those behaviors, because anything goes unaddressed progressively gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
It could be mental health or physical health, behaviors, mannerisms. You have to address those issues and don't turn a blind eye. It's like, well, they'll grow out of it.
Right.
Well, that's not
Right.
your place. Your place is try to seek help and find out if this is a mental health issues or something permanent or something developmental. But it's important as a parent to do it. But because again, we always spend time being reactive instead of proactive.
Yep.
You can find out what's going on. The therapist can do a genogram and find out if it's a history for anger management, because a lot of things pass through the genes, and we want to take those things for granted.
And I think, to chime in on that, a lot of times parents don't want to fully get involved because they don't want you knowing that they have some issues, and it's not about that, but we all need to see, okay, where this is coming from,
Yeah.
And I'll say this, I did a parent night, maybe like a month ago.
Yeah.
And it was about emotional intelligence, but how can parents, chime in and recognize, that emotional intelligence, and how can we curb that anger within, our children?
Mhm.
And two parents, showed just two.
But I guarantee it was a prom.
They'll be there.
Yeah. See, this
Let
is
it be.
prioritizing.
Yeah. Now, when I spoke with people about it, and they were like, well, it was at 6, it was in the evening, perhaps, parents had to work or was getting off. But here's the thing, and I just channeled it back to with my parents, in terms of, yeah, they worked all day or whatever. But if I had a function at school or football practice, you did what you had to do.
Absolutely.
I mean, and the thing is, in terms of work and your child or your children having to do something or a resource to benefit to both of you, you have to figure it out. I mean, work is work. Work is work. You didn't just start, work didn't just come into the picture yesterday. Work is always going to be around. You're going to always have to go unless you win the lottery. But at the same time, your child is going to always be involved in something. But, don't mention anything in terms of, well, there was never anything in place and my child just ran amok and he became this way or that way. Well, there's resources out there that we can sit down and discuss.
Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of people always got an excuse. I ain't got the money. It is so many people who are trying to get their business start doing certain things free. You got organizations that the county or the state provides. They have nonprofit organizations that provide mental health treatment, anger management, or general therapy, or trauma therapy for free. And a lot of times the sad thing is a lot of people who do all the complaining and all the excuse making, those are the ones who get public assistance, which makes it them be prime candidates to get free services because they can use their Medicaid or Medicare. But again, this is what I'm saying when people are, and that's why I always put the emphasis on parents. And we can sit there and say kids don't have these issues. They have these issues that they're not addressing the issues. Was the primary caretakers, which are the parents. So a question I have for you. So how can a youth distinguish between healthy and unhealthy anger? Because, they need to understand that.
Right. Well, I just, I tell a youth, you could easily recognize that, if, you dealing with stress or you finding yourself, your judgment being cloudy or you making, bad decisions, you're starting to hang with the wrong people, you're destructive, you're punching holes in the walls and things like that. Automatically, you should know, okay, well, I have anger issues. That's unhealthy, But if you find yourself on a positive level, you're being more helpful around the house. You being a respectable young man, young lady, things like that, and you're able to focus. You're able to do things that you're supposed to do. then that's a healthy, way of handling, your anger. Now, true enough, you're gonna get angry, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I tell every group, it's okay. It's okay, because you're able to recognize that, and it's gonna happen for one reason or another. Things are gonna come your way. You're gonna have to maneuver and figure it out. But some things may make you angry. But you have to understand, okay, well, I know that I'm angry. What am I gonna do next? What's my next move? So, you just have to figure that out. It's not gonna happen overnight, because you're used to doing it the way you want to do it or the way that you've been doing it, but as long as you talk to somebody, you show them that, hey, I'm angry about this, and you're able to confide in that person, and they understand you, and they're giving positive feedback. It makes you feel good. Then you start to do things on a different note. You're becoming a different person, and that goes back to your friends want to hang with you again. Your family members, they're seeing a different side of you. Everything is starting to click on all cylinders. But when you're destructive and you're breaking things, and there's a problem there.
Yeah.
And parents, don't just shun it off by saying, okay, well, that's just something they dealing with. They'll be all right. You waving your hand, and no, it's not all right.
No, it is not.
And you have to take advantage of people that are out there that can potentially sit down with them, and not saying fully change them, but at least be that ear, because you're not doing so at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem. You shun it off. Well, go to your room, or I don't have time for this. I'm the adult in the house. How dare you be upset?
Yeah.
But you got to understand, they have every right to be upset or angry, just like you do. But how you're showing them how you deal with anger in a negative way, so you can't chastise them for showing the same thing, because it's learned behavior.
Mm-hmm. And that's my point I was going to ask you, because sometimes those learned behaviors, as dysfunctional as they are, have been normalized.
Right.
And so let's say a kid say, "Why are you complaining?" Yes, I threw the cat against the wall, or I punched the wall and hold it, but I didn't hit anybody. I don't do what my parents do. They fight. I just push the wall or kick the dog.
Yeah.
And so again, those, these are environmental things, and they're learning, and then the parents take those things for granted, that children are observing everything they do.
Absolutely.
And so again, these things can be major issues for our youth, and learning how to process all of this. Because we were talking about earlier, like, man, it's just so many reasons why they can be angry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen kids kick dogs, kick animals, throw them against them. I'm like, wow. Or I see kids, when you see kids even choking the cats and dogs because they're so angry, and they take it out on these animals,
on somebody.
Or somebody. And then again, the parents are like, saying, "Where'd you get that from?" And the kids won't even say you, because they know the consequence.
Right.
Or the parents are going to say, "You didn't get that from me." And a lot of times, our children are just, man, that's why I when you mention empathy, and we have to be empathetic to our children, man. And I'm so happy that this is what you do, and trying to empower our kids and community. So one of the last questions I had for you is, so what are some of the practices that can be taught to the youth about self-control?
And that's a great question. I would say just avoid, those temptations, friends and things that may give you that reaction of doing something negative, try and avoid,
friends.
But that avoid that, because it's not doing anything good for you. You have to avoid that.
But having fun.
Listen, you have to, and parents have to really break that down in terms of why I'm telling you this, and you got to keep reassuring that, because you can't say it once, because the kid will, they'll try it. If you say, okay, well, don't touch the stove, and they're going to be curious. They're going to want to do it, but keep mentioning that, keep going over this, but again, it goes to that communication, how much is being made, and how many times are you sitting down to just ask them about the smallest things, how was your day? What are your plans? And anything that comes up in your mind, but you're sitting down together, trying to come up with something, but you're just letting them know these are the reasons why I'm telling you this or that, and I love you. I'm showing you compassion. I'm showing you that I'm thoughtful, and we could do this together as a team. And that's just the biggest thing. You can't say one thing, oh, it's because I said so. And you're gonna do what I told you to do because I said so. You're looking to build communication. At the end of the day, that's not gonna get it. Because they're gonna shut down.
Yeah.
So if you're telling them, okay, well, I don't want you to do this, explain. Explain in a calm manner why. You don't have to get rowdy, or loud, because that's showing, okay, well, you may have slight anger issues, and you haven't solved anything yet, so you may need that empathy and emotional intelligence because you're not recognizing, your own faults and flaws, so it's just about, just showing that compassion, showing them that you care, showing them that you're trying to work on your own situations. Because again, so that kid may snap back at you. Well, how are you telling me this, but I see you do that?
Yes.
Because at that point, they may be bold enough to say that because they're just so frustrated with how you're coming at them, to where they've had so much balled in to where, boom, you said that one thing and it came all out. And don't get upset because this is how you came at them, and they're just repeating it back to you.
Yes, acting out. Just like when we think about I would have in session, I would have some parents coming and complaining about a child watching pornography and how they responded, and they cursed at them, they slammed the door at them. And I was like, how was your presentation? They said, well, I checked them. See, that was a teaching moment. You had an opportunity to talk to the child. You attacked them like they did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Explain it to them. They're just curious. They're children.
Yeah.
And as an adult, you have to do that. But it seems like they attack the children. And then when the children act a certain way, they have a problem. It's just like, and the thing is, these are things that, again, when you don't address it, it progressively gets worse. The next thing you know, you have adults, and then their parents adults. The next thing you know, by them crossing lines, not learning how to communicate to their children, and always look at them as, no, these are adults now. And then they confront them, and then the next thing you know, they play like they've been so hurt from the disrespect of the child, but it's not intentional. It's a reaction.
Yeah.
Yours is intentional when you go attacking instead of communicating. And so what happens is these are not just responses, but they're reactions to how you're confronting them. And I think when you don't address those issues, thinking it's just a child, and you never address yourself, you just get older with that same mentality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the next thing you know, and you tell the story about how that child disrespected you, talked to you that way, but that was something that should have been addressed 40 years ago.
Yep.
You understand? Yep. So you haven't learned about empathy. You haven't learned how to communicate. And that child who's now an adult haven't learned how to communicate and have empathy. So you're expecting them to have empathy for what's needed to you to be respected, but they needed respect and empathy from you as well. So
exactly.
These things that go unaddressed, like I said, it goes unaddressed and progressively gets worse. So don't think that dynamic is going to be any much different from them when they're a 5, 10, 15-year-old to a 35, 45, or 55-year-old.
Yep. Yep.
Man, this is so great and very needed.
It's needed. It's needed.
Needed. I'm talking about these things are so needed. So, Delvin, how can, if anybody needed to contact you for services, speaking engagements, to go to schools, how far do you go? How can they contact you?
Well, they can find me under my my full name, Delvin Rogers, on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram under Calm247. So it's in an acronym form. So it's C.A.L.M 247 together. And you can find me on there. I accept you, or you could send me a DM on Facebook. And basically, I go anywhere: Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. Whoever has a group that has youth, male, female, I'm open to anything, and it's not about. Here's the thing: it's not about seeing what I do and wondering if okay he charges a rate or we don't want to bring him in because a rate. I'm trying to get youth this powerful piece of information. It's not about a rate. I'm just trying to get exposure. I'm trying to speak about great things that I'm doing, but more so than anything, I'm trying to get youth to understand this information. That way they have a fighting chance when they transition into adulthood and they're not doing the same thing they were doing when they were 12 and 13 years old.
Yeah.
They're able to get it. They're able to understand it. They're able to process it, practice it, figure it out, understand, and maneuver in a positive manner. If they don't know, they don't know. But if someone's there to, hey, teach them, okay, self-control, yeah, I had self-control issues and things like that. But when Mr. Rogers talked to me, he kind of broke it down. But at the same time, he was listening to issues that I had in the past, and he didn't judge me about anything. He just gave me some good, positive feedback, and I was able to practice that. And now, once in a while I may get angry, but now I know exactly what to do because I recognize it. I take a step back and figure it out and, just go about my everyday life. So these are the things that I'm doing. I'll go to schools, I'll go to the YMCA, Urban League, wherever there's a youth group, I'm there to speak. I rarely turn down anything if somebody reaches out, because if it's youth involved, I'm there. Give me the time, give me the date. If it can fit my schedule, I'm there. If I got to switch some stuff around, I'm there.
Yes. Well, one of the mentors just popped on from Boys to Men Mentoring Foundation in Charlotte, North Carolina. And you just said it's anywhere.
Oh yeah, I mean, we could discuss it. Now that may be, some funds involved.
That's not you saying. I got the receipts.
That's not around the corner, but no, but I welcome it. I welcome it. Again, there's a need. We watch the news. We watch the news. We listen to the radio. We see the news clippings and things like that, and our youth are just, especially with DeSantis, and you don't need a license for guns, as if it wasn't terrible before.
Yes.
But now it's just free range.
Yeah.
So just imagine youth who getting their hands on firearms and having that anger and rage, and they're going to do things that they know they shouldn't, but I'm going to act on impulse and do it anyway because this is what I know.
Absolutely. So it's been an honor having you here discussing this. I appreciate your organization, Calm247. The work that you do is God sent. I'm blessed to have you on there. It was powerful. It was a mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening experience. And listen, this has been a great show. So this is Dr. Brother Suave. Just letting you know, tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time for Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. And just remember, great minds reach great places. I love you. I mean it. Bye-bye.
Tune in and stream live now. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, is now being broadcast on NPN Voice. NPN Voice can be found on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, and now on Audible and Amazon Music, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, now on NPN Voice. NPN Voice. Got voice. You heard? Programs like this are made possible by Neighborhood Planet Broadcasting Systems, Neighborhood Planet Network, iBlisters Digital Media Creative, and from contributions to NPN TV from viewers like you. Thank you.